Cycling is brutal. It's a sport where history is written in blood, sweat, and mud. It is full of stories of legends, of people who attack on the roughest roads, who push themselves beyond exhaustion, beyond reason, for a moment of immortality. These riders can become bigger than themselves, an icon of the sport. When we here at 124 think of icons, there's one that immediately comes to mind. A rider we grew up watching, one that conquered the Northern Classics and the sprints, but wasn't without his flaws. Tom Boonen first came on to the professional scene with the USPS team in 2002, following a U23 season where he won the Belgian National Championships. The expectations for the 20-year-old Boonen weren't like they are on young riders these days, at least not at first. Everything would change at the 2002 Paris-Roubaix. It's the 100th edition of the monument, with 191 riders beginning in deceptive sunshine, which would quickly disappear and be replaced with rain and mud. Boonen is here as a domestique in support of United States Postal Service team leader George Hincapie. When the race gets underway, a large group of some 30 riders go on the attack, and in that group is Boonen. Quote, "I did the race as an amateur a couple of times, and I knew that at the beginning of a windy race, it's always possible that an echelon will go. So I paid attention and got in the front group." Boonen was given a free hand. Nobody knew who he was, so he probably didn't have to work hard because he was saying that he was there for me. There's no real battle for position because you're in the breakaway, so he had it sort of perfect. The rain begins pouring, and the race becomes one of attrition, as if just riding over dry, brutal cobblestones wasn't tough enough. In the final 60 kilometers, the combination of treacherous cobbles and fatigue saw the breakaway group dwindle to just 7 riders, with Boonen included. But they were soon caught by the favorites on a 5-star sector, one of the toughest in the race. They didn't stay together for long. Classic star and Belgian hero Johan Museeuw attacks. Hincapie can't follow on his own, so Boonen takes up the chase with Hincapie in tow. And this is the moment where everyone realizes something. Boonen is going to be really, really good. Quote, "I knew he was a big talent. I followed him when he was an amateur. But it's not always that a big talent can come over and win something. I saw immediately that he could follow me. I told him on the podium that he would be the new king of the classics." Boonen would end up taking 3rd in his first attempt at Paris-Roubaix. And the question wasn't if he would win it, but when. Boonen had gone head-to-head with the best in the sport, and almost came out on top. By the end of the year, Boonen had left US Postal for Team Quickstep, joining Johan Museeuw, Paolo Bettini, and the team built to dominate the Spring Classics. Quote, "The main reason was the package. US Postal is the best team in the world, with a few other teams next to it. But its main goal is the Tour. Everybody knows that. It's no secret. This team focuses on the classics, and I get the opportunity to race more races in Belgium. I can do all the races in preparation for the main classics, get to race with a lot of good guys for the classics, and if Johan or Bettini or anybody else has a bad day, I'll be able to watch from the second row and maybe try and win one on my own." Leaving the team caused a long simmering beef between Boonen and Lance Armstrong. Quote, "Lance replied, 'Good luck, you'll need it.' That hit me hard, and I was only 20 years old, you know. For a couple of years, he wouldn't speak to me whenever we crossed paths in races. It lasted 6 years. By then I thought, fuck you, man. Every race we were both in, I'd pass him and say, 'Hey, Lance,' and he'd just stare straight ahead, angry and grim. I just laughed at him. And honestly, that's the best way to make a statement." 2003 would be a year where Boonen learned a lot. Even while a knee injury hampered his season, he still at least got his first win in Quick-Step colors at the Tour of Belgium. He snagged 3rd in a 3-up sprint at Ghent-Wevelgem and also competed at the Vuelta. his first Grand Tour. Boonen showed everyone he was a very talented sprinter as well. No wins, but a handful of top fives. So now, everyone is also waiting for his first Grand Tour stage win. 2004 was the year Boonen proved Quick-Step made the right choice and demonstrated he was capable of carrying the future of the team and Belgian cycling on his shoulders. At E3, Boonen was in the driver's seat, looking poised for victory, until a puncture with 20 kilometers to go threatened his chances. However, he fought back, and with 5 kilometers remaining, Quick-Step set a blistering pace to support their young star. Even Johan Museeuw, the team's veteran leader, took long pulls at the front to ensure Boonen was in the perfect position. In the final sprint, Boonen was the fastest by far, leaving no one able to challenge him. It was his first semi-classic victory, a major milestone in his rising career. At Gent-Wevelgem, motivated by his third-place finish the previous year, he returned determined. Once again, Quick-Step rallied behind him and Boonen delivered, securing another win. With growing confidence and the full support of his team, all eyes were now on the biggest challenge of this season, Paris-Roubaix. In Roubaix, Boonen attacked multiple times, hoping to relieve pressure from Museeuw, who was racing for the final time before retirement. At one point, Boonen escaped with George Hincapie and Juan Antonio Flecha, but the trio was eventually reeled in. A rear wheel puncture struck Museeuw at a crucial moment, costing him what could have been an incredible farewell victory. Boonen ultimately finished 9th, but the experience solidified his place as a future leader of Quick-Step. Next year, there would be no doubt. This would be his team. The next few months were all for one thing: preparing for his first Tour de France. Quote, "At the beginning of the season, I didn't think riding the Tour was absolutely necessary. But now I'm happy and I can't wait to get there. I feel like if I didn't ride it, it would be a mistake. To race and finish the Tour would mean to get stronger and step up to the next level. I want to win at least one stage. Being second or third doesn't matter. I'm going to race all out, because otherwise, I might as well stay home." The opening stages of the race were filled with frustration, as mechanical issues cost him valuable opportunities in both stages 1 and 2. Stage 3, however, seemed like it could finally be his breakthrough. The race even passed through Roubaix, featuring cobbled sections. In the final kilometer, Boonen positioned himself well, but ultimately finished 4th. Reflecting on the sprint, he admitted that a moment of hesitation had cost him. Concerned about his previous mechanical problems, he shifted too early, fearing another mishap. The move backfired. He couldn't get the power down in time, and the win slipped away. By stage 6, Boonen was ready to make up for his earlier misfortune. With 200 meters to go, he launched his sprint, and this time, no one could come close. It was a dominant performance, marking his first ever stage win, which signaled his arrival as a true force in the peloton. Then, on the final day in Paris, Boonen wins again. "I would have an incredible career if I win 2 stages every year on the Tour, but I know it is not easy. Next year, I would be satisfied to do half of my results this year." What we are about to talk about here is one of the greatest single seasons of all time. The year is 2005, and we're at E3. Boonen made a statement by following a decisive attack with 53 kilometers to go. Alongside his breakaway companion, they held off the chasing pack, showcasing Boonen's endurance and tactical intelligence. In the final sprint, there was no contest. Boonen easily powered to victory. This performance made one thing clear: he wasn't just a sprinter. He was willing to race aggressively and take the initiative, setting the stage for an even bigger performance in the coming weeks. At the Tour of Flanders, Boonen once again found himself in the lead group with 10 kilometers to go. With experienced rivals around him, including Eric Zabel, the expectation was that Boonen would wait for the sprint and risk it all in the final dash to the line. Instead, Boonen defies expectations and attacks with 9 kilometers remaining. His lead was fragile at first, but the chasers hesitated just enough, unable to close the gap. As Boonen made the final right-hand turn with a 13-second lead, his competitors resigned themselves to fighting for second. Boonen, however, powered to the biggest victory of his career, cementing himself as the new star of Belgian cycling. But his spring campaign wasn't over yet. One more monumental challenge remained: Paris-Roubaix. If Boonen could conquer the Hell of the North, he would join an elite club of just 7 other riders who had won both Flanders and Roubaix in the same season. The pressure was on, but with the form and confidence he's shown, history is within reach. With 50 kilometers to go in the 103rd edition of Paris-Roubaix, the early breakaway was caught, forming a lead group of 11 riders, including Tom Boonen, George Hincapie, and a few others. As the brutal pavé sectors continued, crashes and mechanicals began to take their toll. Fabian Cancellara suffered multiple punctures, eventually losing contact, while other riders struggled to keep up with the relentless pace. With 20 kilometers remaining, Boonen, Hincapie, Fletcher, and 2 others were the last contenders at the front. However, as the race hit another cobbled sector, Boonen's strong acceleration shattered the group, leaving only Fletcher and Hincapie able to follow. As the race approached the Roubaix Velodrome, the trio of Boonen, Hincapie, and Fletcher worked together to maintain their gap, with the chasers over 2 minutes behind. Entering the iconic Velodrome, Hincapie led out, setting the stage for a 3-man sprint. Fletcher launched his attack with 250 meters to go, but Boonen timed his sprint perfectly, surging past on the inside to claim victory. At just 24 years old, Boonen secured his first Paris-Roubaix win and became the 8th rider to complete the Flanders-Roubaix double. Boonen is, as far as the history books are concerned, already a rider to remember, but history is always being written. During the Tour de France, Boonen continued his dominant season, winning 2 more stages and leading the points classification. However, his Tour campaign was cut short due to injury, forcing him to abandon the race. There was time to recover before his 3rd major objective of the year, the World Championships. With his form returning, he arrived in Madrid, ready to take on the best riders in the world. As the race reached its climax, a small group of 6 riders led into the final kilometer. But hesitation proved costly. They watched each other for just a moment too long, allowing the chasing group, including Boonen, to rejoin. Sitting in 10th place as the sprint began to unfold, he instinctively followed the riders moving up on the right side of the road, waiting for his moment. Then, in an instant, Boonen shifted into a bigger gear, got on top of it, and launched his sprint straight down the middle of the road like a cannonball. No one could match his power. He surged ahead, winning by a full bike length and securing the rainbow jersey. With victories at E3, Flanders, and the World Championships, along with stage wins in the Tour, it was arguably the best modern season ever produced by a single rider. Towards the end of the year, he also moved to Monaco, perhaps because of the better weather, or lower taxes, or because he's now a superstar, and it's just a rite of passage. In 2006, Tom Boonen returned to the Tour of Flanders, now wearing the prestigious rainbow jersey as a reigning world champion. With 33 kilometers to go on the Valkenburg climb, Quick-Step had 2 teammates supporting Boonen. When Leif Hulst attacked, Boonen followed, and the 2 riders worked together to hold off the chasers. In the final sprint, there was no contest. Boonen powered to victory, claiming back-to-back Flanders titles. This time, he won in front of none other than the King of Belgium himself, solidifying his status as a national hero. His Paris-Roubaix campaign, however, was less triumphant. Officially, he finished second, but a dominant Fabian Cancellara, a soon-to-be fierce rival, was the winner. Quote, "I don't want to look for any excuses. Some riders were just better than me." We jump ahead to the 2007 season. which started strong for Boonen. He finished third at Milan-San Remo, then claimed victories at E3 and Ghent-Wevelgem, reaffirming his dominance in the one-day classics. However, his form wasn't quite enough at the monuments. He failed to podium at both Flanders and Roubaix. Despite these setbacks, he still remained a force in the peloton, picking up 2 wins at the Tour de France and securing the green jersey as the overall points winner. His season results, overall, reinforced his reputation as the best sprinter classics hybrid in the peloton. As the year drew to a close, controversy overshadowed his achievements. The 2008 classic season arrived, with Boonen once again among the favorites. At the Tour of Flanders, Quick-Step executed a tactical move, with Stijn de Volder attacking to force the other contenders to chase, theoretically setting Boonen up for a sprint finish. However, when the favorites group failed to reel de Volder back in, allowing him to take the win, while Boonen finished a disappointing 18th. Redemption came a week later. We're at Paris-Roubaix, where Boonen has found himself locked in a three-way battle with Alessandro Balon and his growing rival, Fabian Cancellara. With 36 kilometers remaining, he followed Cancellara's move, and the trio worked together to build a decisive lead. On the final quarter lap of the Roubaix Velodrome, Boonen launches a perfectly timed sprint, leaving the others behind to take his second Roubaix victory. With another monument win under his belt, Boonen is a superstar, both on and off the bike. However, his post-Roubaix celebrations took a turn. 3 days before the start of the Tour of Belgium, Boonen tested positive for cocaine in an out-of-competition drug test. Since cocaine wasn't a performance-enhancing drug out of competition, he avoided sanctions from the UCI and WADA, but the fallout was immediate. Adding to his troubles, just a week earlier, he had lost his driver's license for a second time in 6 weeks after being caught speeding at 180 kilometers an hour in a 90 kilometer an hour zone with a high blood alcohol level. He apologized to his Quick-Step manager for the drug test at a press conference the next day. The manager said Quick-Step kept his confidence in him, but Boonen was barred from both the Tour of Switzerland and the Tour de France. Quote, "I'm not going to defend myself here today, but it hurt my family, my friends, and my team, and I apologize. I've been in the news recently in a negative way. I'm not perfect, and I'll accept the consequences." Tour de France race director Prudhomme was unmoved, however. Quote, "Tom Boonen is a big champion, but a big champion must also be exemplary. The integrity of the Tour and of the teams participating in the Tour could be harmed." The 2009 season saw Boonen return as one of cycling's biggest stars still, but the script at the Tour of Flanders played out almost identically to the previous year. Once again, Quick-Step's strategy revolved around de Volder attacking, forcing Boonen into a defensive role as the other favorites chase. And once again, they failed to bring de Volder back, leaving Boonen to watch his teammate take a second consecutive Flanders victory while he played the supporting role. Paris-Roubaix, however, was an entirely different story. Boonen entered the Velodrome the undisputed best man of the day after delivering a flawless race in the chaos of the Hell of the North. In a decisive move, he attacked from a group of 6, and while his closest rival, Thor Hushovd, gave chase, disaster struck. Hushovd lost control in a corner and crashed. With no one left to challenge him, Boonen powered alone to his third Roubaix victory, etching his name among the legends of the sport. Now, he stood alongside the likes of Eddy Merckx, Francesco Moser, and Johan Museeuw, riders whose dominance at Roubaix had made them icons. How did Boonen celebrate joining cycling's most elite company? More cocaine. Boonen was alleged to have tested positive 2 weeks after that race, on April 24th or April 25th. Speaking on Belgian TV Sporza on Saturday night, the 2005 world champion admitted that he had a problem. Quote, "The night before the drug test, I went out. I stayed for a while and I drank. At some stage, I must have taken something. Then I had a blackout. I think I have a problem. After spending 3 to 4 months working, when I go out, I probably overstep the mark and I become someone else. For 364 days a year, it's perfect. I try to be an exemplary citizen. But the day that I drink too much, something that I don't do often, I change. I will now seek help. Boonen risked missing the Tour de France in July for the second year in a row. He also faced the risk of criminal charges, having escaped any such punishment last year after Belgian prosecutors decided he had paid for his crimes through what amounted to a very public humiliation. The possession of cocaine in Belgium carried penalties between 3 months and 5 years in prison and fines of 1,000 to 100,000 euro. After legal proceedings and due to being, Belgium's biggest star, Boonen ended up back racing, winning the national championship in June and was even able to race the Tour, though he had to pull out with illness. The 2010 season was supposed to be a turned page for Boonen, and it also marked the escalation of the rivalry between Boonen and Cancellara. While Boonen has moved past his off-bike controversies, his on-bike battles with the Swiss champion became the defining narrative of the year. He showed strong early season form with a second-place finish at Milan-San Remo, setting the stage for a showdown on the cobbles. The first real test came, as always, at E3, where Boonen, Cancellara, and Juan Antonio Flecha broke away on the Paterberg with 42 kilometers to go. Boonen seemed poised for victory in a sprint, but Cancellara launched a surprise attack just before a sharp turn with a little over a kilometer remaining. Flecha lost Cancellara's wheel, and despite Boonen's desperate chase, the Swiss rider soloed to victory, leaving Boonen to settle for second. At the Tour of Flanders, Cancellara delivered an even more dominant performance, dropping Boonen so decisively on the mirror that accusations of motor doping still linger to this day. Boonen could do nothing but watch as Cancellara rode away to an uncontested victory, later quipping, quote, "It makes me the best regular rider of the peloton." The rivalry continued a week later at Paris-Roubaix, where Cancellara once again crushed the competition, further fueling online speculation about hidden motors. Boonen, unable to respond, saw his classic season overshadowed by Cancellara's sheer dominance. The rest of the year proved frustrating, as crashes at the Tour of California and the Tour de Suisse resulted in tendinitis in Boonen's left knee. With injuries hampering his form, he faded from contention for the remainder of the season, leaving his competition with Cancellara unresolved, at least for now. 2011 wouldn't be a true continuation of the duel either. The season was a rough one by his high standards. While he managed a victory at Ghent-Wevelgem and a respectable fourth-place finish at the Tour of Flanders, his campaign was marred by crashes and missed opportunities. His biggest disappointment came at Paris-Roubaix, where he was unable to finish after crashing out of contention, a stark contrast to his previous dominance and good fortunes in the race. The setbacks continued in the summer. Boonen lined up at the Tour de France, but hit the ground hard on stage 5, sustaining injuries that forced him to abandon the race just 2 days later. His misfortunes followed him into the Vuelta, where another crash put on an early end to his campaign and ruled him out of the World Championships. For a rider used to being at the very top of the sport, that was a season of frustration and unfulfilled ambitions. While he still showed glimpses of his brilliance, the constant setbacks made it one of the most difficult years of his career. We're in 2012, 7 years after Boonen's historic 2005 season, and he's about to reach another level. Boonen surpassed 100 career victories with a Stage 2 win at Paris-Nice, setting the tone for a spring campaign that would cement his legacy. Victories at E3 and Ghent-Wevelgem made him the clear favorite heading into Flanders, now featuring a new course. With his biggest rival, Cancellara, crashing out, Boonen seized the opportunity. In the final 18 kilometers, he found himself alongside 2 other riders and confidently outsprinted them to take his 3rd Flanders victory, joining an elite group of triple winners. But Boonen wasn't done. A week later, he delivered one of the most dominant performances in history at Paris-Roubaix. With 52 kilometers remaining, he launched a solo attack and never looked back, riding alone to the finish in Roubaix's iconic velodrome with a staggering 1 minute 39-second advantage over the chasing group. His fourth career victory in the Hell of the North him with the all-time record and marked his second career Flanders-Roubaix double, an achievement no other rider had ever managed. Quote, "I was not really thinking about the winning race or doing a record. I was just fighting myself. I was taking it step by step, cobblestone by cobblestone, kilometer by kilometer. When I won Flanders, I realized I also needed a bit of luck in Roubaix. Now if I look on these past 2 or 3 weeks, it's been amazing. It's my second double. Now I'm the only guy that ever did this double 2 times. I realize now that I'll probably be one of the best, maybe the best guy on the cobblestones that ever rode on these roads." Boonen's 2013 season was derailed early when he suffered a serious elbow infection that required hospitalization. Despite returning to racing, crashes forced him to abandon both Gent-Wevelgem and the Tour of Flanders, and a fractured rib kept him from starting Roubaix. In 2014, he showed glimpses of his former dominance, finishing second overall at the Tour of Qatar and winning Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne. He placed well in Flanders and Roubaix, but he was no longer the invincible force of previous years. Quote, "We had some personal drama with losing the baby the Friday before San Remo. I started really well. I won a few races straight away going into the season. I won Kuurne, and then 2 weeks later, this happened. Emotionally, I was a wreck going into those races. I kind of got into it again during the races because it's not about therapy. Overall, 2014 was not a year to remember." 2015 was a year of more crashes and setbacks. At Omloop, Boonen was in the decisive break, but was outsprinted by Ian Stannard and settled for third. His season took a major blow when he crashed out of Paris-Nice in March, dislocating his shoulder and missing the classic season. He did return in late April, where he played a supporting role for Mark Cavendish at the Tour of Turkey. Boonen won a stage at Tour of Belgium, but later suffered a severe crash at the Abu Dhabi Tour, resulting in a temporal bone fracture and lasting hearing damage. 2016 was a last dance at Roubaix. Though Boonen wasn't as dominant in the classics, he came agonizingly close to his record-breaking 5th Paris-Roubaix win. In a thrilling sprint finish, he was narrowly beaten by Matt Hayman, though his performance was hailed as magnificent by past champions. He proved he could still compete at the highest level, ending his season with a 3rd-place finish at the World Champs in Qatar, behind Peter Sagan and Mark Cavendish. 2017 was to be Boonen's final year in the peloton, and he started it by making more history. His stage win at the Volta a San Juan marked the first professional victory for a cyclist using disc brakes. However, a series of crashes in early races hindered his form. He finished 8th at E3 and 6th at Gent-Wevelgem, but faced bad luck at the Tour of Flanders, where a mechanical issue ended his podium hopes. His final race in Belgium, Chel de Prix, honored him with a start in his hometown, where he helped lead out teammate Marcel Kittel for the win. And finally, for one last time at his beloved Paris-Roubaix, Boonen fought at the front and ultimately finished 13th. He did play a key tactical role in supporting teammate Zagnet Sebar, who finished second behind Greg van Avermaet. With that, one of the greatest classics riders of all time stepped away from professional cycling, leaving behind a legacy of dominance, resilience, and unforgettable victories.